she was dearly loved by her family and friends. Like most young people, she had great aspirations for her future, and she was really on track to make a wonderful contribution to society. But Christie never got to make her contribution to the world. Her life was cut short on November 7th of 2011. Christie met Akshay Chand when they were both enrolled at Willow Park Primary School in Hillcrest. They weren't exactly friends, and they would not see each other again until 2010. 7 years after leaving Willow Park, Christie got a job at a North Shore supermarket where Shand was also working, and they soon, I wouldn't call it rekindled their friendship. Christie was one of those kind of people that she wanted to help everyone, and so she listened to what he had to say, and she sympathized and wanted to help him, but I wouldn't say that they were exactly friends. So during the following year, they, spent some time talking and things like that, but again, their relationship was largely characterized by Christie providing emotional support for him. And I'm gonna go back and forth between calling him by his first name and his last name, because I feel like names have power, and sometimes people like this I don't want to call by their first names. Anyway, by August of 2011, Shand was no longer employed at the supermarket where they both worked. So that takes us to the morning of September 6th, 2011. Akshay called Christine and told her if she did not come to his house right away, he would take 40 pills that he had crushed and put into a drink. Christie, of course, went to stop him, and this is one of the very few cases I think I have ever covered where I can tell you exactly what this person said about this event. Christie tells the police exactly what happens next. Quote, "He got really angry, and he pulled a knife out of his back pocket. He got up and he stood over me, his right hand shaking as he's waving it. It was a kitchen knife, like one of those ones you'd pull out of a knife set. It was about 20 centimeters, and it looked like he had sharpened it. He said, 'This is how it's gonna go. If you scream, I'm going to knife you.' When he said that to me, I started crying because I thought he was going to kill me. I have never been so terrified in my life. Then he told me to shut up and compose myself. I wanted to text my friend because I wanted someone to help me. He got up and he still had the knife in his right hand, and he says, 'Give me your phone. We can either do this the hard way or the easy way.' He said, 'You know what you'll get if you don't give it to me.' He's holding the knife and he's twisting it around, and he said he had aims. His aim was to terrify me, to get revenge, and then to kill himself. He told me to take off my jumper, and I had to throw it to him. He checked the pockets, and then told me to take my shirt off, and I said that I wouldn't. He said, 'You know what will happen if you don't.' So I had to. Then he said, 'Now take off your pants.' And I said, 'No, I won't do it. It's too far. I can't do it.' And I started crying more because I was getting an idea of what he wanted to do. He held the knife out and he said, 'You know what will happen.' So I took them off. He was sitting on the armchair and he had this knife in his hands. Every so often he would twirl it in his fingers. And then he'd look at his fingers and he'd be like, 'Ouch,' like he cut himself. He was talking about how he believes one night the devil came to him and grabbed him. And since then, applies for bail a second time. Christie wrote to the court informing them of her serious concern for her own safety if he was let out, because he lived less than 300 meters from her home, and she feared he would kill her out of revenge. Christie's letter read, "I wish to oppose Akshay, I'm sure I'm saying it not right, receiving bail as the events have made me wary of his intentions. I worry for my safety because of this, and particularly as my father is currently on a fly-in-out job in Australia, which reduces the support I can rely on. Akshay's family, mother and auntie, live close to my home, so I feel like he may play on my thoughts as he knows my father is away for a reasonable period, but he also knows my routine, traveling to uni and where I work in the city. I am worried that he may still try to get revenge on me, as he is already in trouble and has nothing to lose if he tries again. This causes me to fear for my safety. I catch the bus to uni or work every weekday, traveling from my local stop through Northcote to the city. So I am worried that living close by, he would be able to follow me and get onto the bus. It is very public, and I feel as though I will be very vulnerable. I also have exams for university coming up and wish to be able to concentrate on my studies and not have it constantly on my mind that he is out and has the possibility to get to me again. I would like to get on with my life at present, but I need to know that I don't have to encounter him as I try to restore my faith in people, as this has caused me a lot of distress." And she signed it with her name, Christie Marceau. Akshay Shannon also wrote a letter to the judge, and it went like this. "To Your Honor, I'm incredibly sorry for the ordeal I put Christie through. I am only remorseful for my actions, and I know she will sooner forgive me than I will forgive myself. Given the chance, I would like to apologize to her parents, and anyone else affected. Ironically, the last thing she said to me was that she was sorry, and it is only after the events of that day she realized how much pain depression caused me and how much I needed her, and vice versa. She was my emotional outlet. There was nothing I couldn't tell her. She's really adamant, and I'm sure she feels as though she's to blame. She acknowledges that her absence led to escalation and the impending event that occurred. But as modest as she is, truthfully, the blame is on my shoulders. I take full responsibility for my actions, and I accept the consequences of my wrongdoings. In my defense, what I did was aided by great psychological pressure, the kind of pressure that arises when you're sitting at the dining room table crushing up pills, and in your head you believe no one cares if you live or if you die. I was desperate, vulnerable, and exploited my own weaknesses. I will do everything in my power to get the help that I need. I have been put on antidepressants, and I am willing to receive counseling. I wish I had asked for help earlier. Yours sincerely, Akshay Shannon." Now, when I was first researching this case, I was like, what? They let him out? Like, what is happening? And then I read that letter and I thought, well, he sold it pretty good. And then when I saw the, certain conditions that the judge released, I thought, okay, the judge believed this, right? So the judge allowed Akshay bail under these conditions. He was confined to his mother's house, just a mere 1,000 feet. I know I said 300 meters earlier, but we are in Auckland for this case, so most of it is meters and centimeters. 1,000 feet from Christie's house. He was allowed to leave the premises for only medical reasons, as long as he was Christie and her family, Aimee was bailed to the house just 300 meters away on October the 5th. His mother and sister were terrified that he would harm someone or himself, so they actually hid all of the kitchen knives before he came home from jail. But Aimee, he perfected his plan. He waited, and despite the fact that they hid all of the knives, he managed to get his hands on one. He placed it in like a duffel bag sort of thing with a hammer, and he waited. He rightly suspected that Christie's family would be on guard and vigilant after his immediate release, and he also assumed quite naturally that they would become less security conscious as time went by. But he did not wait very long. 32 days after his release on bail, Aimee Sand made his move. He woke up at 6:30 in the morning and decided it was time to go get Christie. He got dressed, picked up his bag, and walked the less than 1,000 feet to the Marceau home. It was the 7th of November. Christie, her mother, and her grandmother were all at home. Her father at the time was in Australia with work. The Marceau household was 2 stories, and it sat on a hill sloping away from the road. The house's front door is on the upper level, and the back door on the lower level, just giving you a little ground here. At around 7 a.m., Christie was asleep downstairs, and her mother was upstairs getting ready to work when the front doorbell rang. Christie was apparently a frequent online shopper, and it wasn't unusual for couriers to call in the early morning with deliveries. So, thinking it was a courier, Christie's mother inadvertently opened the door to Shannon. He was wielding a large kitchen knife. She did what any normal person would do. She backed away, and she screamed out a warning to her daughter. And when Shannon asked who was home, she lied and said that Christie's father was there in another room. Her mother said, "When I first saw him, it was just such a shock. I didn't know what was going to happen, to be honest." Christie woke up at her mother's warning scream and ran to the door to see what was wrong. Shannon kicked her in the chest and caused her to fall backward down the flight of stairs she'd just come up. She managed to get herself up, and she tried to make her escape through the back door of the house. Christie was able to make it to the deck outside the house, and she was fumbling with the gate when Aimee Sand caught up with her. The first thing he did was stab her in the face. She fell to the ground, and he hovered over her and stabbed her approximately 10 more times. He was stabbing her with such a frenzy that he bent the blade of the knife 90 degrees and made it incapable of use. Christie's mother at the time was calling emergency services, which apparently was 111. She ran out on the back deck after this and finds her daughter bleeding and hardly breathing. And she picks her up and she tells her to hold on, that help was on the way. She said that she watched the life drain out of her daughter as she was still holding her. I know she tried, she really tried, but then she was gone. An officer arrived and checked on her, and someone was asking about an ambulance, and the officer said, "No, we don't need one." And then she said she knew that it was definitely all over. I myself am really glad she didn't have to see that attack, but she does express some regret over it that we'll talk about in a minute. Witnesses said that when Akshay realized that Christie was dead, he smiled. They said that he was smiling with this sick grin as if he had achieved his purpose. When one officer asked him why he was still there, instead of running, he said for reprisal. A second officer noted Shan's hands were shaking, and they asked him why that was, and he replied, "It's not easy to kill someone, is it?" He then asked if he could listen to his iPod while they decided what to do. Akshay Shan was charged with murdering Christie later that same day. He was completely devoid of emotion and told officers that he was a callous fiend. "That's just who I am. I murdered her." He appeared in the North Shore District Court the next day. He did not apply for bail, but police had prepared an opposition form in the event that he tried. Akshay Shand was charged with the murder of Christie, and his trial started in October of 2012, so almost a year later. His mental health was in question throughout, and he claimed that when he made the decision to kill Christie, he believed that she was the devil. He also claimed to hear a female voice in his head that he called Patricia, and that he had some type of cancer. I read cervical, but Akshay Shand was evaluated by 2 separate psychiatrists, and both of them came to the same conclusion. He was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. They recommended lifelong institutionalization. Initially, he was charged with homicide, but was ultimately acquitted by reason of insanity, and he currently spends his time in a psychiatric hospital. It is Waitemata DHB's Mason Clinic in Auckland. Terrifyingly, in 17, only 6 years after Shand was incarcerated, Christie's parents became aware that their daughter's murderer was now allowed to leave the clinic under supervision. He has been spotted at the local library, McDonald's, and supermarket. In fact, the same chain of supermarkets where he and Christie worked together before her death. Her parents have actively campaigned for a law change that will require the families of crime victims to be notified if their loved one's offender is granted leave. It has been 11 years since the tragic killing of Christie, but her parents, Tracy and Brian, and her sister Heather feel the immense pain of her loss every single day. Every month without Christie has been an ordeal. Every birthday, Christmas, milestone she wasn't allowed to reach or enjoy with her family. Heather's wedding to Luke, where Christie was supposed to be the maid of honor, the birth of her first niece, whose middle name is Christie, her own 21st birthday, graduation, future partner, and family. Tracy and Brian moved to Australia soon after Christie passed away. Their pain was just too unbearable, and their fury at authorities too insurmountable to stay in Auckland. They of course remember their youngest daughter every day, every hour sometimes, and they say they have fought to survive the tragedy. Their scars are too deep to ever heal. physically been in our lives for 10 years. I say physically because I know your energy is constantly with us and looking after us. Our family bond was too strong for that to ever be taken. It is only a small comfort, though, as the agony of heartache of you being taken from us never lessens. But you are gone, and we are still here, and although some days are dark, we are learning to cope. I know that you would want that. We tried to imagine the beautiful, strong woman you would be now. Your independent spirit would have reigned supreme for sure. In the last 10 years, what would you have achieved? What part of the world would you be living? Would you have met your perfect match? All questions that will never have true answers, but in our memories and imagination, we create your world. We see your friends growing and getting on with their lives, and this is so hard. It reinforces our loss, but you were a big part of their lives too, and they help us keep your memory alive. We love that you send us little signs through music that you're still with us, and your timing is always perfect. One of your favorite songs, Sweet Disposition by Temper Trap, seems to play whenever we are a little down. Is it your way of getting us to remember the good times? It makes me smile when I remember you rushing in the door after meeting them at a music festival. You were so excited, and you proudly showed me the photo you'd taken with them. The photo and the song remain, and that is our bond. Our lives have been transformed over the last 10 years on a path we never imagined. The day you were taken, we thought we would never recover. We could not envision a future without you. But as I have already said, life goes on, and we have still been blessed to have many happy moments, although never fully complete without you. We know you are proud of your big sister, and you've been with her along the way. Grieving the loss of a child is different to grieving the loss of a sibling, and sadly it took me a long time to realize this. She has overcome such great obstacles, and her inner strength shines through. She is now such a great mom herself. It is just so heartbreaking she never got to share the little munchkin with you, as you would have been a fantastic auntie. We know that you would have encouraged all sorts of mischief as you did when you were younger, and totally drove your sister crazy. She's making sure that you are a big part of our little puppet's life, and although you aren't here, you will still be with her as a very special guardian angel. You are in our hearts every single day, but as we do on every Remembrance Day, every birthday, and every Christmas, we will toast you with a tequila shot. Until we are reunited with you again, our tequila queen. Love and kisses, angel child, mom and dad. Christie's family has set up a trust called the Christie Marceau Charitable Trust, set up as a legacy for an angel taken too soon. Through tragedy, Christie's Trust wishes to create a positive vision for the future. By fundraising and donations received, the Trust offers an annual scholarship, for an Auckland teenager to attend Outward Bound. I will link the description to the Trust website in the description box of this video. So let's talk about this a little bit. I have a hard time with this one, guys. I don't think that the judge should have let him out on bail. I think that the justice system really failed Christie. The fact that he lived so close to her and was still allowed to be out on bail really infuriates me. I don't know. I think that they didn't make sure he was getting counseling. They didn't enforce some kind of suicide watch facility or something to get this kid some help, because maybe if he had gotten the proper help, he might not have killed Christie. You know, he could have gone lasted that long. He was just so callous about the whole thing, and that to me is completely terrifying because I've seen that. I have seen people be just completely void of emotion and just not care about what they have done or the consequences to what they have done, and it is terrifying. So, I don't know, it just seems so unnecessary. I don't know why people aren't getting the proper help that they need. He didn't even have to ask, like they clearly knew what stuff was going on. Why didn't anyone help him in order to help her? Why didn't they put her in more of a protective custody kind of situation? Like, why was there not like a police officer stationed outside of her house? Do they do that in Auckland? We definitely do that here in the United States. Like round the clock security. So I don't know. I have a lot of opinions on this case, and it's hard to really know which one is the right one. I'm sure that people will disagree with some of the things that I said, and that's okay. One of the things I like best is when you guys comment down below and tell me what you think, because you definitely have other sides of the story that maybe I didn't hear or didn't think about. I apologize for the train and my neighbor's dog barking currently. The neighbors just don't let their dogs inside anymore, so it doesn't matter whether I film at 9 p.m. or 7 a.m. The train was a surprise, though, because that usually happens in the evening. Anyway, thank you guys so much for being here today. I will see you next week for another true crime video. I have definitely been on kind of a run of solved cases, so I'm going to try to do something a little different. I also have, as my patrons know,